seen my updated video where I said that we're going to be coming back with some bangers, man. So we back, man. Like I said, we got the knowledge too, man. We got the knowledge, man. But yeah, anyway, let's waste no time. Let's get straight into this video. So now, after after you've all been seeing and watching my videos for about over 4 or 5 years, I appreciate your dedication, man. It takes a lot to make these videos. There's an old video that I actually want to revamp, and we're going to talk more about it. The video right here was what your church pastor won't tell you, and it got a lot of nice views, and there was a lot of people in the comments talking about it. You should really watch the video in its whole entirety so you get the whole concept. But I want to actually synchronize it a little bit more and focus on IAO. For me, I think for all of us, we focus with Yahweh mostly in the Old Testament, way before the Hellenistic age, and then we go straight to the New Testament. But during the Hellenistic age, how was Yahweh getting worshipped? And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Yahweh was being evoked during this time, during the Hellenistic age. So I want to dive deep during this period around the 3rd century BCE, where how Yahwehism was practiced around the Hellenistic Jews and how they looked at Yahweh during this time. So that's what we're going to be focusing more a lot, because I believe that we will get a lot from knowing how these Hellenistic Jews were running around during this age, because out of this we get the New Testament, which we all know was written in Korean Greek, also the same dialect that they are using right now during the time of the Septuagint. Of course, LXX, and I did a video about explaining of what LXX is, so you should really take a look into it, because there's so much into this book, man. And its upbringing. That's a lot of questionable things. But yeah, other than that, we're going to be using some old videos that'll be a little bit more updated. But yeah, let's focus how Yahweh was worshipped during the Hellenistic age. And before we begin, let's dive deep and give you a just info of what the Hellenistic age is, as you'll see here. As we go into the etymology of the word Yahweh and where it has its upbringings, I have to remind you again, because I'm going to beat this freaking horse with a dead stick. You need to understand that the Greeks had a handling to the making of the Old Testament and the New Testament. As I explained in my other videos, it was written all in Korean Greek due to the Hellenization that was happening after Alexandria took over this area. So I remind you, please, because you're going to get really lost and confused, but you need to remember, which I showed you in my the making of the Septuagint video, that the Greeks made the Septuagint plain as day, and it was used all the way to Saint Jerome. So please remember that. So we need to see, the point I want to make here is that we need to understand what the Greeks named Yahweh instead of the Hebrews, because like I said, the Greeks were first into the handling of the Old Testament. So just keep that in mind as I read this excerpt here. So, like I was saying, Greco-Roman syncretism. Yahweh is frequently invoked in Greco-Roman magical texts dating from the 2nd century BCE to the 5th century CE, most notably in the Greek magical papyri under the names IAO. And that name is going to be really detrimental to this research, because we're going to dive deep more on that word and another word, but I will finish off this paragraph. But I wanted to make it a key point, so that's why I have that highlighted, IAO, because this is going to blow your mind. But let's continue. Adonai, Sabaoth, and Ilua. In these texts, he is often mentioned alongside traditional Greco-Roman deities and Egyptian deities. The archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, and Jewish cultural heroes such as Abraham, Jacob, and Moses are also invoked frequently. The frequent occurrence of Yahweh's name was likely due to Greek and Roman folk magicians seeking to make their spells more powerful through the invocation of a prestigious foreign deity. So that's really important now. So now, as you can see clearly that the Greeks and the Romans invoke Yahweh in different names. And one particular name was IAO. And we're going to look into IAO and see what this word pertains to and why it was a substitute for the word Yahweh. Just show you here. IAO, ancient Greek, alternative forms, EAO. Just as you guys saw, one of the names that the Greco-Roman used to use for Yahweh. So just want to make sure no one gets confused. So here's the etymology here. From Aramaic Yahweh, related to the biblical Hebrew Yahweh, and written used by the Hellenistic Jews in the Septuagint before the Christian era. Just as I was explaining earlier, that I wanted to make it a point across that you understand that this word IAO was used first before we get the Hebrew Yahweh in the Old Testament. So let's continue here. It was written used by the Hellenistic Jews in the Septuagint before the Christian era, when it became standard to substitute Kyrios, Lord. It is unclear whether the Greek term initially represented Iao or Iaho. The former persisted among the Jews and Christians until late antiquity. In the 4th century CE, Jerome, who's really important, we'll talk about him real quick, who translated the Latin Vulgate Bible from Hebrew and Greek, mentions both Iaho and Yaho or Yaho, the latter matching the translation of Aramaic Hebrew. The shorter, not shortened form, Yah, mirrors the Hebrew Yah. So, what I want to show you is that before all this was going on, and we have Jerome, who translated the Latin Vulgate Bible from Hebrew and Greek. And if anybody wants to know who Jerome is, we'll talk about him real quick. He is best known for his translation of the Bible into Latin, the translation that became known as the Latin Vulgate, and his commentaries of the whole Bible. Jerome attempted to create a translation of the Old Testament based on the Hebrew version. Remember, the Greek was verse, so now when you go into Hebrew, things will be lost, ladies and gentlemen. Rather than the Septuagint, as prior Latin Bible translations has done. His list of writings is extensive in addition to his biblical works. He wrote polemical and historical essays, always from a theological perspective. So now here's where it gets really interesting with Jerome and his translation. He began in 382 CE by correcting the existing Latin language version of the New Testament, commonly referred to as the Vetus Latina, which used the Greek Septuagint. So here's the separation, ladies and gentlemen. By 390, he turned to translating the Hebrew Bible from the original Hebrew, having previously translated portions from the Septuagint, which came from the Alexandria. He believed that the mainstream rabbinical Judaism had rejected the Septuagint as invalid Jewish scriptural text because of what were ascertained as mistranslations along with its Hellenistic heretical elements. He completed this work by 405. Prior to Jerome's Vulgate, all Latin, now this is important, prior to Jerome's Vulgate, all Latin translations of the Old Testament were based on what, ladies and gentlemen? The Septuagint, which I showed you again that the Greeks made it themselves, not in Hebrew. Jerome's decision to use a Hebrew text instead of the previously translated Septuagint went against the advice of most other Christians, including Augustine, which we all know Augustine for sure, I know all the Catholics and Christians know Augustine, who thought the Septuagint inspired modern scholarship, however, has sometimes cast doubts on the actual quality of Jerome's Hebrew knowledge. So to make a quick little insert, so it was Jerome that went against the grain, which everybody was saying, like everybody, as you've seen, everybody was using the Greek Septuagint. This was like, this was the foundation of the Old Testament. This was used throughout all in the Hellenistic years, all the way up to 382, even to 405 CE. This was the dominant book that they used. And here comes old Jerome over here that wants to shift away from the norm and make a translation using the Hebrew text to make his translation, not knowing that the Greek was there first and that the Hebrew translation came much later, ladies and gentlemen. So there is your disconnect from going away from the Greek Septuagint and leaving it here and start using strictly the Hebrew and thereon with Jerome. So I just wanted to point that out with Jerome. Now, going back towards IAO, I want to show you a big connection, which is really slightly down in the article as I highlighted here. The proper noun for IAO, first Korean, as I say, Korean Greek Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton Yahweh. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, that you all been waiting for. Another connection to Greek gods. 2, related to Dionysus, based on conflations between the epithet Sabaoth and the Phrygian god of wine, Sabaeus. And I know all my Greek historians and Greek mythological viewers right now are just like this, like, what? You're connecting Yahweh to Dionysus and Sabaoth and this Phrygian god Sabaeus? Yes. Yes, I am. And it's all here for you, ladies and gentlemen. It's all for you to see. So, we all know a little bit of Dionysus, but who was Sabaoth and Sabaeus? Now, let's really dive deep here, because this is going to shed some light into the Christians and all you religious folks. And remember, this is no attack. This is just facts, ladies and gentlemen. And this is me just doing deep research and not stopping or being afraid of what I'm about to find out, and having an open mind to see where did all of this stem from. So, if you all watched to all this and seen all the evidence I had, I thank you. I commend you, because you are the real scholars. Because this right here is going to be one of the biggest segments, and I'm glad that you all are seeing this right now, because this is where it gets deep. We're just going to nail the coffin and bury it back up with this one. So let's look into these 3 gods that actually coincide with IAO, aka Yahweh from the biblical Hebrew, as I'll show you here. Start off with Sabaeus, what they were showing you. So who is Sabaeus? Sabaeus is a deity originating in Asia Minor. He is the horseman and sky father god of the Phrygians and Thracians. Sabaeus gained prominence across the Roman Empire, particularly favored in the Central Balkans due to the Thracian influence. Scholarly debate has long debated Sabaeus' origins with the Corinth consciousness, leaning towards Phrygian roots. Now here's where it gets good. Though the Greeks interpreted Phrygian Sabaeus as both who, ladies and gentlemen, who do we got here again? Zeus and Dionysus. Representations of him, even into Roman times, show him always on horseback wielding his characteristic staff of power. So here we have this god Sabaeus, where the Greeks interpreted and compared him as both as Zeus and Dionysus, aka IAO, aka Yahweh for the Hebrews, ladies and gentlemen. I told you, the truth is here, ladies and gentlemen. This is what the truth gets you. But let's keep going on here. We have the Jewish connection, and I'll go a little bit down here. By this, it is conjectured that the Romans identified the Jewish Yahweh Sabaoth of the host as Hov Zabasios. This mistaken connection of Zabasios and Sabbath was often repeated. There ain't no confusion, ladies and gentlemen. These people know what their gods were and their characteristics, okay? So, just want to point that out. In a similar vein, Plutarch maintained that the Jews worshipped Dionysus, aka Iao, remember, and that the day of Sabbath was a festival of Sabasis. Plutarch also discusses the identification of the Jewish god with the Egyptian typhoon. Dang, now we have typhoon mixed into all of this with Yahweh and Sabasis. That's wild, ladies and gentlemen. An identification which he later rejects. However, the monotheistic Presbyterian worship the Most High under the name, which may have been the form of the Jewish God. So now they're saying that there's another God that's connected to Yahweh or Sabaoth of Iao, and his name is Presbyterian. So let's make a quick segue into Presbyterius and see what this God has to tell. Presbyterius, the Most High. Damn, that's a title which I can't remember where I've heard that title that they called. Maybe God, the Most High? Maybe I'm overthinking it. And a similar variation of the term first appeared in the writings of Gregory of Nazianzus and Gregory of Nyssa. The term has been linked to a body of inscriptions that date around 180 to around 400 AD. Most small voting offerings, but also include altars and stela dedicated to Theus Hesperus, or sometimes simply Hespestius, mainly found in Asia Minor and at the Black Sea coast of the area today of Russia. So now let's see a little bit closer, and I want to show you a sculpture of him real quick before we continue. The cult statue of Zeus Hesperus. Zeus? I just told you. We're making the connections, and I'm showing you again. This isn't me, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they're presenting. They're showing you the connections. Again, Zeus is being intertwined with Iao, with Yahweh, with the Hebrew god Yahweh, and now formed into another god, Hespesius. So let's keep going here. Interpreting the evidence, I have it glued down here, highlighted, but I want to actually look more. Contemporary Hellenistic use of hypsistos as a religious term appeared to be derived from and are compatible with the term as appears in the Septuagint, again, from a much earlier date. Translates Hebrew Elohan, meaning highest. This term records more than 50 times as a substitution for the Tetragrammaton. And what is the Tetragrammaton, ladies and gentlemen? Come on. The name of God, or in direct relation to God, most often in Psalms, Daniel, and Sirach. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. There is the connection again. And I'm giving you these articles, and once again, I ain't going to college for any of this to be a historian, ladies and gentlemen, like all these other people. This is just me doing the research again and connecting to dots and again using critical thinking. This is what's going on now, ladies and gentlemen. People are not thinking from themselves. If you want to find out the truth, you got to do the research. And I'm going to say this again. I say this multiple times. You have to be crazy about this research. I stay up late at night, ladies and gentlemen, late at night, looking up all this information, trying to connect this dot. I lose time with some of my family. I lose time with some of my friends. But I spent so much energy into figuring out what's all this? Why are we here? What's with the connection? What's with the translation, the lies? What's going on? And this is why I made my YouTube channel, to show other people that you could do the research, and it's all in books and there's other historians talking about it. You can't follow mainstream, ladies and gentlemen. You have to go outside the grain and look at these other scholars that are talking about this subject. And this is why I give you all the references, everything, so you could do your research. I'm not like these other YouTubers that's just gonna put up, splatter something up, and they don't even tell you where they got it from, how you can look it up, or if it's tangible. This is what separates me from the rest of them. And yes, I show a bunch of articles, and I will say this, I do use a little bit of Wikipedia, but once I say it again, Wikipedia is a good tool because it gives you the references, and that's how you check these people and what they say, by getting their books and reading it, because they'll reference you to other books. But now, you know what I see, ladies and gentlemen, people don't even want to read nowadays. I mean, no offense, like, yeah, you can get a Kindle, you can get those ebooks, but tell me this, and your battery dies and your Kindle charge, are you going to be able to read these books that you have downloaded? No. You see, you won't be able to, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I am a big component when it comes to books. This is why I preach so much of having books, books, books. I probably have over $4,000 worth of books at my place right now, ladies and gentlemen, due to this research. But I apologize for rambling, but I just need you all to understand is that this is all here, but you have to be open-minded and be willing to put in the work to find all this. But anywho, just wanted to put that across, and let's continue where we left off. And to finish off with this little segment that we kind of went off for a little bit, the history and hypothesis on origins. This cult may have formed as the native Cappadocian cult of Zeus Zabasius, integrated with the cult of Yath Sabaoth, practiced by the numerous Jewish colonies. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Zeus is being intertwined with IAO and Dionysus, and who else? With the Hebrew God Yahweh. Why isn't anybody preaching any of this to any of us? Because they want to keep you in the dark, ladies and gentlemen. And mostly, I'm going to be the one to say it. They don't even know themselves, ladies and gentlemen. You have some of these preachers with all these mega freaking churches preaching to the sheep. I hate to say it. No one's going to awaken and do this research. Has any of them brought any of this attention to you at all? Name me one preacher or historian, biblical historian, giving you these facts, ladies and gentlemen, like how I'm delivering or giving it to you. But I just, like I was saying, I just put the dirt back on, but I want to level the dirt now because the coffin's in there. Oh, it's there, all right, with the dirt, but I want to, let's make this a little plumb and leveled out. You can catch all that on the way home because, you know, I like to square my actions. But let's go back to IAO real quick and let's finish this off. Another example of Yahweh, and the book is The Chaldean Oracles of Zoroaster, edited and revised by Sapira Adi. It's a good book, ladies and gentlemen. And look at the bottom, London Theosophical Publication Society, Collectiana Hermetica, Volume 6, 1895. So we're going to look into a page in here which is going to be really important. And it's on page 20, The Chaldean Oracles of Zoroaster. And I have it highlighted there, and it's going to be at number 6. The Chaldeans called the god Dionysus or Bacchus from the Romans, and here it is again, IAO, in the Phoenician tongue. Ooh, the Phoenician tongue. Remember I told you about the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians gave the Greek their letters. They actually educated them. And I will say this too, I'll be making a video that the Greeks are partially the Phoenicians too. I won't dive deep on it, but that video will be down the road. And if you want to hear that video, let me know in the comments about that. And please, before I continue, please like and subscribe, please, because I've just been giving you guys bangers, man. But let me continue though. Let me continue. In the Phoenician tongue, instead of the intangible light, and he is also called, who again, ladies and gentlemen, Sabaoth, signifying that he is above the 7 poles, that is the Demiurgus. Again, you can all get this book, The Chaldean Oracles of Zoroaster. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't me spewing all of this or reaching. Other historians and scholars have commemorated what I just said to you in this video. And this may be a little bit lengthy video, but I had to get this out for you all to understand the significance of all of this. That again, the Greeks are connected to the Old Testament and the New Testament. They had a handing with it all, with it being connected to their gods and other gods around this region, from the Thracians to the Phoenicians, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't some new god that was just derived out of here. No, they took bits and elements from other gods to bring this to light. And this is a big shocker to most people. But let's continue. So now, looking into the word IAO and showing you that it was connected to Dionysus, Sabosola, Zeus, and Herestides, I want to look into IAO and where some other people, societies, have actually used this word and the totality of it all. So when looking into this, I found this, as you see here. IAO stands for Alpha Omega, remember from the Greek, or in Greek, Iota Alpha Omega, and is a symbol for the cosmic divine concept of I am. Where have you remembered that? Ladies and gentlemen, I am that I am. Who did God give that verse to and told him that that is his name? Come on now. IAO was the esoteric name of God in the ancient mysteries. Helena Blavatsky, I'll be making a video about her because she's really important, explains that the names originate even before the Greek or Hebrew cultures, referring to the Chaldean and the Indian cultures, in which she proves this is true because I just showed you all that is exactly where all of this stems from. So as we see further here into IAO, I want to show you an excerpt from a book, Greek and Roman Magic. So let's start right here, ladies and gentlemen. Tray comes of meal and 8 drachms of cheese, pronouncing the spell. and write his name and place it beneath the tripod. And here's the Lord's name, IAO. Who else did they have here? The light bearer. I thought that was supposed to be extremely for Lucifer. Give up the thief whom I seek. If any of these swallow not what is given him, he is the thief, ladies and gentlemen. And this is drawing down the moon from a Greek vase circa 200 BCE, as you're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen. Them invoking IAO, the light bearer, aka Zeus, aka Dionysus. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. All the evidence I laid out for you strategically so you can see how this is all just factual. You could have stopped anywhere in this video and looked any of this up and see that it is nothing but facts, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're reaching towards this end, I commend you a lot, because it seemed that you would soak up this information and have come to the same conclusion that this is factual. But this. So now, before we get to the conclusion of this, I have to finish off, because I just showed you about the magic papyra that we use to invoke IAO also. But what's really important is, so I want to keep on with this topic about magic, because if you know, practitioner myself, in the book, and this is good. Anyone that really wants to get into this, this is a good start. Now, the book, Modern Magic by Donald Michael Gregg. This book, y'all, and there's no dogmatic view, people, ladies and gentlemen. This is just me doing my history. So what does IAO have to do with modern magic? I think you would like to see this here. So let's look straight to the pages of this so you can get a gist of what IAO is. So in the book, in lesson 4, we're going to read this little segment right here so you guys get a little gist of this. So as you see here, 138. If we were to use Egyptian pantheon as gods, Virgo is represented by the goddess Isis. She is who nature and the mother of all things. Scorpio is represented by Apophis, also known as Set or Typhoon, who was death, the destroyer. Soul is represented by Osiris, who slain and risen was the Egyptian resurrection and vegetation deity. Since the I in the INRI formula, and if you know INRI, for all the Rosicrucianists out there, you know this formula is repeated and represented 2 of the magical elements, the 3 members of the Egyptian pantheon, Isis, Apophis, and Osiris, can represent the 4 archetypal elements of which everything on earth is composed. They can also represent famous thoughts of alchemy, and if you desire, they could be representative of some of the basic, albeit borrowed idea used by Christianity. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is. It is interesting to note that the Notorican, the abbreviation made of the first letters of Isis, Apophis, and Osiris. Again, ladies and gentlemen, what do we see here? IAO, pronounced IAO, forms the name of the supreme god of the Gnostics and early sect of Christianity. Resurrection of the Redeemer gods are always associated with Sol, the sun. The sun is the primary giver of light to our planet. It follows, therefore, that light is always associated with the idea of a Redeemer God. This is why beneficial white occult groups always try to bring light, spiritual light, to humanity. In the Latin, the word of the light spelled LVX and pronounced lux, with the U sounding like that in you. And right here, ladies and gentlemen, also, I am showing you on page 156 during the ritual where IAO is evoked here. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? This goes to show you that not only were the Hellenistic Jews worshiping Yahweh, they were also invoking Yahweh with the Greeks and during the Roman takeover. Because remember, the Romans, when took over the Greeks, they followed Hellenistic ideas and theology straight through it to a T, to a T, ladies and gentlemen. So now, seeing all of this, ladies and gentlemen, there is no shadow of a doubt that there is a syncreticity going on around this time during the Hellenistic age, where everybody is agreeing and seeing Yahweh in Dionysus, Sabasis, and other deities around this time, and that IAO, aka Yahweh, was being invoked in magical papyri and going to the new age too, being used still to be invoked. And again, the book, Modern Magic. Again, the book, Modern Magic, ladies and gentlemen. Got to get these books, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, I just wanted to bring this all to you and show you the truth behind it. And again, I got used most of this from my old video, which your church pastor won't teach you. Again, great video to get into. But yeah, after seeing all this, what do we all think about this? Because this was some alarming stuff. And again, I leave it all to make your own judgment. All I can do is just show you where I get my references from. And as you've seen throughout this whole video, straight nothing but references. We're not going to spout things where people want to just show you things, say things out of their mouth. Let's just be honest, and not give you their sources. Where's the sources? Let us see the sources. Let's make these ideas and get my information for myself. But again, I won't stay too long, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to show you how Yahweh was, again, worshipped and evoked in Greco-Roman area during the Hellenistic age. Again, more videos are on the way. Please, if you're new, watch some of my past videos. There's so much information I have in my past videos, and I think you guys are going to really like it. But yeah, other than that, thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Let's get into the comment section. What do you guys think about Yahweh being evoked during the Hellenistic age with the Hellenistic Jews and everybody agreeing about this? But yep, anyone's get in the comment sections and more videos to come, man. And thank everybody for sticking a while, man. It's been a lot, as you've seen in my prior video, back to basics. But let's do it, man. This knowledge is here for the taking, man, and I'm just here to share it with you all. I can't take all in this when I die, so I got to leave it here on the material plane. And again, shout out to the Rosicrucians too. Y'all been seeing this shirt the whole video. I don't think I gave it a shout out. Shout out to the Rosicrucians, man. The Fratters, man. Y'all know what it is. But anyway, thank you again, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Cheers.